Welcome back. Over the weekend, our own John Bachman sat down with Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Here is John with part 3 of his exclusive interview.
We got to ask you about 2016. You know it's part of the drill. And
Sure.
I know everybody's talking about it. Your name comes up in the middle of the pack there with a lot of other folks trying to break through that 10 percentage point basis. When don't tell me you don't look at the poll numbers, because I know all politicians look at poll numbers, and our audience wouldn't believe you if you said otherwise. But when you look at those numbers, does that impact your day-to-day operation as you move ahead, whether it's to 2016 or whatever you have planned in the future?
Look, my focus is on how we turn this country around. I think this next election, there is an urgency. So how do we win? And let me suggest something to Republican primary voters, 2 different things. Number one, I think the best way to decide who to support in 2016 in the primary is ask the question, who is standing up and leading? You know, talk's cheap. In a primary, every candidate's going to come along and say, I'm the most conservative guy who's ever lived. Who diddly, I am so conservative. I think every one of us ought to ask every candidate, show me. If you say you oppose Obamacare, show me where you stood up and fought it. If you say you oppose the debt and the debt ceiling and bankrupting our kids and grandkids, show me where you stood up and fought it. If you say you oppose President Obama's illegal and unconstitutional amnesty, show me where you stood up and fought it. If you say you support the First Amendment, our free speech, if you say you support religious liberty, Hobby Lobby, the Little Sisters of the Poor, show me where you stood up and fought it. If you say you oppose the IRS targeting citizens, show me where you stood up and fought it. If you say you support the nation of Israel, if you say you oppose Iran acquiring nuclear weapons capability, show me where you stood up and fought for your principles. That's what we need to demand. That's the discussion we're having. And I'll tell you, over the next year, we're going to have a national debate about the right way to win. There are a lot of voices in Washington.
A lot of voices in Washington.
The consultants say every election you got to run to the middle. You got to go to the mushy middle. And you know what?
Squishy middle, right?
I understand that theory, but it doesn't work. Every time we do it, we lose. And John, if we nominate in 2016 another candidate in the mold of Bob Dole or John McCain or Mitt Romney, and they are all good, honorable, decent men who I respect, but what they didn't work. If we do it again, the same voters, the same millions of conservatives who stayed home in 2008 and 2012 will stay home in 2016, and Hillary Clinton will be the next president. I agree with Ronald Reagan. How do you win? We paint in bold colors, not pale pastels. That's what this election is going to be about.
This election is also going to have a lot of blue-collar Democrats who are looking for something else. Mm-hmm. And they would say, right, we elected a senator last time with only, not even a full term. It didn't work out so well. Maybe I want to look at somebody with a executive experience background, a governor, a Jeb Bush, or a Scott Walker. What do you say to those folks?
I got to say, I agreed with the premise of your question, then not where you went with it. Look, the only people saying that are consultants in Washington who are yabbering to the media. I've never actually heard a real voter saying that. Jimmy Carter was a governor. I'm not sure we need another Jimmy Carter after Barack Obama. The question that voters should ask, and I think they are asking, is who's leading? Who is standing up and engaging on the great issues of the day?
Cruz then went on to outline those key issues of the day, JD, including executive action on immigration. We know this week he's fighting the DHS funding bill, also fighting the nomination of Loretta Lynch. She's got a new op-ed out in Politico today. We have the link for that on Newsmax.com. Also, he talked about Obamacare. We remember the Obamacare shutdown of 2013. And Hobby Lobby, the Supreme Court case over religious freedom involving Obamacare and birth control. So all 4 of those issues Cruz made sure to outline. Does he sound like a guy who's gearing up for a run?
You know what tells me more than those hot button issues for conservatives? As a guy who's been there and thought about doing the other thing with delusions of grandeur, when you saw Ted Cruz bristle at the suggestion a governor would go there and come back quick with a Jimmy Carter comparison, let me tell you, the man from the Lone Star State, the junior senator, is taking a good, hard, long look at running, and I think he's probably about 3/4 of the way there.
You know how I always like to say sometimes you got to poke the bear to get the response. That was an intentional question there. Cruz leaned up in his chair to make his point, and as you mentioned, he bristled at that idea. The whole interview up on Newsmax.com as well. Folks can see it there.
Ah, yes, political psychology and the strategy of a political journalist, typified by our friend John Bachman. And I'm just trying to get by as a recovering congressman. We're coming back.